Super Boss Gaiden is a homebrew game for the Super Nintendo by Dieter Laser and Chrono Moogle, and was released in 2016. The story behind the game is unusual as it coincides with the discovery of the Super Nintendo CD console developed by Sony and Nintendo, which of course was never released as Sony went on to produce the PlayStation instead. It's a platform beat-em-up, and being a homebrew game, it isn't particularly long, but is it worth that short time spent playing? Let's find out. So, as the story goes, the head of Sony is informed of the existence of the SNES CD prototype, which has made its way to the general public. Naturally, the president reacts as anyone would in this situation, by flying into a blind rage and destroying the entire building, while kicking, punching and lobbing anyone who gets in his way. You play as the titular Super Boss, and you have a small variety of moves at your disposal, including charging, sliding, and throwing, all of which are essential for progress to the game's conclusion. And as mentioned, that conclusion comes rather quickly. Even a first-time player like myself can finish it in a mere 15 minutes. Clearly this game is meant as just a bit of harmless fun, but there's more to see here than you expect. The first thing one notices about most games is the graphics, but this is especially true here, being as it is a homebrew after all. The backgrounds are colourful and detailed. The characters have a very Kunio-kun look to them, but they're well drawn and fit the game perfectly. As you play, your health is represented by your heart rate, with a meter that fluctuates as you go. On the whole, the graphical feel of the game is very charming, and certainly as good as one would expect from a professional release. The music is more reminiscent of the mod music scene on computers in Europe, which is perhaps unsurprising given the German origin of the game's creators. All in all, a very attractive package, and a full game like this would be very pleasant indeed. On the playing side of things, there are only two real downsides, one being the obviously short length of the game. It's to be expected from an amateur effort, but replay value is obviously not so high here. The other main problem is that for a platform game, the jumping mechanics aren't particularly comfortable. You can double jump, but I often find myself fighting with gravity to get through tricky situations. Still, it both looks and feels very much like River City Ransom and other Kunio-kun games, so if you're used to that, you'll feel right at home here. It may only last 15 minutes, but it is a fun quarter of an hour. As mentioned at the beginning, there's something of a story to this game's creation. Those who discovered the SNES CD prototype lamented the fact that, despite having such an historically important artifact, there was nothing to actually play on it. So the coders of this game set about writing something that could, theoretically, be played on the so-called Nintendo PlayStation. The in-game story reflects this, naturally. However, the devs didn't actually have an SNES CD to test the game on, given that only one exists in the world. So the game instead can run on an emulated version of the CD, which, let's be honest, is nonsense. Nobody knew at the time how the CD would have actually worked. And given how small this game actually is, there's also no point in playing it on a CD, even if it did work on the unique original hardware, which it doesn't. Long story short, there is a ROM to use on your favourite emulator or on an SNES flash cart, and that will most certainly suffice. There literally is not much more to say about this. It's short, but it shows great potential, and I for one would relish a full-size SNES game that looked and played as well as this. So give it a go, I say. After all, it won't take up much of your time.